While the Russian forces keep up the overall pressure, Ukrainian forces achieve successful counterattacks at various parts along the front line. Also, we have some information from the Ukrainian side regarding its military production, which is highly interesting, but more about this in the situation report. We'll start with the overall situation. Ukraine has continued striking Russian positions all over the map. Basically, for the last few weeks, daily drone strikes by the Ukrainians were reported against Belgorod, Donetsk, Kherson, Smolensk, Oryol, Sarizan, Rostov, and in Moscow itself as well. So while they don't take the spotlight anymore, we still do have drone strikes from the Ukrainians deep into Russian territory. On the Eastern Front itself, we have Russian attacks at Synkivka, towards Petropavlivka, at Ivanivka, at Stelmachivka, which is here. Stelmachivka in this direction, and in the Serebryanske forest down here. The Russians have been successful in the direction of Yampolivka, which is here. They gained more or less this area here. They are right in front of those forested areas now with their positions, but at the same time, the Ukrainians were successful in counterattacks and managed to throw back the Russians in the area directly north of it, where the Russians recently gained 2 kilometers. From what I've seen, they more or less turned all that territory back under their control. So while that success was remarkable in the current phase, that the Ukrainians lost 2 kilometers, it seems that at least the majority of it is now back under Ukrainian hands. We also have a further Ukrainian success being here at Dibrova. There is a video of Ukrainian tanks, you can see them here, in a forested area firing at Russian positions. And now this video was geolocalized. Unfortunately, my camera is mostly above what we see here, but in the end we don't see that much. It was the geolocation was done in here, and you see it's directly northwest of Dibrova in the forested area. So it's in here. Here they have advanced more or less in this area here. They keep pushing towards Dibrova in this region. They recently had successes there as well, and we see additional ones showing up now. South of the Seversky Donetsk, the Russians are keeping up the pressure as well. We have Russian successes towards Bodanivka here. The Russians managed to push forward in this area here, in the fortification area here. The Russian also managed to capture most of Khomove. It's unclear as of now whether there is still some Ukrainian presence. It might be in this area here, but more or less Khomove has fallen. The final situation I cannot really confirm yet, but from what I've seen, it's basically lost to the Russians as of now. There are also Russian attacks reported in the direction of Ivanivske. The Russians claim that they have been successful there. I cannot confirm it. I do not have any evidence confirming this, but we do have evidence of additional successes when it comes along the railroad line here. And the Russians have more or less pushed down significantly along the railroad line, or like they advanced their control over the forested, the tree area here right east of the railroad line over the last few days as well. The Ukrainians did quite a number of counterattacks in the area, but all of them failed. I cannot confirm any success by the Ukrainians in the bigger Bakhmut area itself. At Avdiivka, the tide is also turning towards the Russian side. We have attacks all around Avdiivka, basically, from Novobakhmutivka in the direction of Novokalinove, down here along the railroad line, Stepove, and around here, everywhere in this direction. Now, we have some claims that the Russians managed to advance further up here, that tree line. I cannot fully confirm that yet, but we do see that now and then they gain some successes in these, roughly in these 2 areas, and by now they have advanced deeper into Stepove and keep pushing towards the rest of the town that is still held by the Ukrainians. The biggest success was further south, though, a few hundred meters to the south of Stepove. In that tree line, the Russians managed to advance roughly 500-600 meters, and they are now likely going to take over that tree line towards Stepove as well, which will then force the Ukrainians to withdraw a little bit further here as well. They also did a number of attacks on the coke plant, but before we switch to that, I just see in my script or in my bullet points about this, here is where that recent video was shot, where two Ukrainian soldiers were giving themselves up, were raising their hands, and were still executed by the Russians, or shot. Execution sounds like it was planned. One is being led out of the dugout. He's lying down completely and capitulating, and the next one is coming out, raising his hands, and then suddenly firing starts, and both of them are being killed. I personally would understand something else under execution, but that's semantics. Doesn't really matter. The fact is they were killed after having given themselves up, and thus it's a clear war crime that happened here, and this was geolocalized in this area here as well. The Russians did continue to attack towards the coke plant, but are unsuccessful here. I cannot confirm any change in territory. There are some claims that they advanced by the Russians, some claims that they had success further south here. No proof whatsoever. Additional attacks have happened here in the industrial area, but they are currently regrouping according to some reports, so they will gain, there will be fresh attacks fairly soon, and in this area here. We do have a proven Russian success here at Pervomaiske. In this area here, we do see that there was a there were drop bombs from a drone, and it's, as you can see, those are the two lakes here, and let's say 1/3 to the left of them. So it was here more or less, which recently was still not under Russian control. Now we see Russian troops there, which means they have advanced 100 to 150 meter in the western direction towards Pervomaiske here as well. The fighting is also continuing at Marinka, at Novomikhailivka. Marinka again, the Russians have advanced towards the outskirts towards the end of Marinka, if you want it this way, in the southwestern part. According to some Russian mill bloggers, there's still some Ukrainian presence in this area here, but this is also a part of Marinka, and this is still several hundred meters are still under Ukrainian control. So we are far away from Marinka. Or far away is a little exaggerated as well. We are still nowhere close to the Russians controlling all of Marinka, especially as a Ukrainian counterattack succeeded in the north here and pushed the Russians back by several hundred meters in the northern part north of that lake here. Further south, Novomikhailivka fighting again, but no change in territory. At the Oblast border, we do have reports about additional Russian attacks towards Staromayorsk. They try to advance along that tree line and that tree line here. And here's a high ground that would dominate the river valley, but they have not succeeded in advancing further here. Further west at Orikhiv, we have additional Ukrainian attacks, mostly in the direction of Verbove and around Robotine, but no successes can be recorded. The two majors, they are Russian mill bloggers, are writing the Ukrainians have the initiative here, which would be an indication for us how the Russians themselves see it. So while we don't see many successes, while we see the Russian counterattacks in this area, at least according to Russian observers, the Ukrainians still hold the initiative south of Orikhiv. Russian counterattacks also happened, but also no successes that can be recorded. So as of now, I leave the front line unchanged at this point. At Dnipro, the situation is similar. Krinky, no change in territory here. It seems that more or less the situation is stable now. The Ukrainians are incapable of advancing further out, as the Russians have brought in reinforcements, as they have established fortifications, minefields, etc. They have huge trouble getting forward, the Ukrainians here, but the Russians themselves are also being held back. As soon as they pop up, as soon as they are visible, Ukrainian artillery strikes them, Ukrainian drones strike them, so they can't do anything about this either. It seems to be a standstill at this point. Right now, also, bad weather, mostly rain and fog, is hindering combat operations there as well. So this is another reason why the front line there is more or less unchanged. We have a video from Ukrainian forces that are supposedly here, like right northwest of Holapristan, here in Bilogrodove. Here the fighting is, there's a video of roughly 3 minutes that was supposedly taken here, that Ukrainian troops have currently been active here, but then again this was supposedly a contested area, so we should see some Ukrainian activity in this region at least now and then, and we see them moving around, not in fortifications, so we cannot say that the town itself is under Ukrainian control as of now. Generally, about the overall situation, we have information that the Russians now have proven that they managed to take the first M2 Bradley. Recently, they have already shown that they captured one, but as we said in past videos, it's one thing to take a selfie in front of a tank that is somewhere in the field, and it's obviously another one if you get an ARV there, an armored recovery vehicle, and put it on a flatbed or something to actually pull it away. In this case, now the Russians have shown pictures that the Bradley that was captured close to Avdiivka in this area here is now fully under Russian control, so they have now captured their first Bradley in this war. The Ukrainians are increasingly getting more effective, according to reports, when it comes to striking Russian combat helicopters and combat planes close to the front line. We had, at the beginning of their counteroffensive this year, we had big Russian successes with their Kamov-52 combat helicopters. This has changed now. Apparently, the deliveries of air defense systems and the modification of existing systems to, for instance, use Western Sea Sparrow missiles has been successful to a degree that the Ukrainians can keep up the pressure on the Russian Air Force. But at the same time, the Russians have switched over to gliding bombs that are a serious problem along the front line. According to the Ukrainian spokesperson for the air forces, the Russians are dropping them from 50 to 70 kilometers in distance, showing that they have to fly very high to drop them to allow them this distance to glide. And daily the Russians are using roughly 100 of those bombs, showing us the intensity of the usage of those bombs, as obviously the explosive mass in a gliding bomb is much higher than that of an artillery, and it has a guidance system which supposedly makes it fairly accurate as well. So this is one of Ukraine's biggest problems right now, that intensive use of gliding bombs by the Russians. The Russians are also saying they shot down 2 S-200 over the Azov Sea. So S-200 is an obsolete air defense system. Ukraine still had some missiles and refurbished them to use them in a ground-to-ground role. And according to the Russians, they were aimed at Krasnodar Krai, so in this area here, and probably flying somewhere in this area, and were shot down over the Azov Sea. What exactly they aimed for, we don't know, and we don't have any information that the Russian claims would be untrue or that the missiles might have hit something. So it seems that there was actually a usage by them and that they were shot down. We have the Ukrainian President Zelensky. He said that the Ukrainians are now building 6 S-222 Bogdana per month. These are it's this artillery system that we've recently seen several of, which in the past it was only known that one prototype existed. It was the artillery system that had the range to shell the Snake Island after the Russians took it over here. It was actually able to shoot from Ukrainian territory over over the ocean towards that island, and now it's in serial production. According to the Ukrainians, it's 6 a month, which is a fairly impressive number for a country that didn't have big production directly prior to the war while being at war. The artillery system uses 155 millimeters, so it's NATO compatible. So obviously the shells will be kind of a question whether or not Ukraine will get enough shells for them. But at the same time, the Ukrainians also ordered 450 armored fighting vehicles for next year from their own industry. This is supposedly then the claims that they will be able to produce this, which would give us the next indication what they think they'll be able to produce. What kind of fighting vehicle is unknown, whether it's obviously there would be a massive difference if it's some kind of improvised MRAP system or if it's a BTR-4 that has been proven to be really successful and effective in the war so far. But we have some numbers from the Ukrainians what they think they can produce. The Bulgarian president has vetoed the handover of 100 BTR-60 that Bulgaria wanted to give to Ukraine. BTR-60 is like 2 generations prior to the current BTR-80 that is being used. It's possible to differentiate them, but they are extremely similar. So unless you read into the topic, you don't see many differences. So more or less it's comparable, just minor improvements over the generations. So a fairly usable armored fighting vehicle, only a heavy machine gun on top, so it can't be used as a wheeled infantry fighting vehicle, but at least as a battle taxi that can give some fire support from its heavy machine gun. That would have been possible, but at least as of now, the Bulgarian president vetoed it. He's known to be pro-Russia. I have no idea about the Bulgarian system, whether there's some way to overrule his veto or whether that's a final decision then for the Bulgarian side. Poland also has announced that they have handed over recently 18 Krab howitzers. Those are basically Polish versions of the South Korean K9, K9 actually. It's a fairly modern artillery system of which Ukraine uses a lot of them, but also has already lost a number of them as well. The contract for those 18 has been signed months ago, so it's not a new announcement. It's just a confirmation that they were given to Ukraine recently. And then we have some pictures from the Crimea. This is the island of Charilhach. The storm that was on the Black Sea, which has happened a week ago, has actually opened the dam between the island of Charilhach and the Crimean Peninsula itself. The Russians there were openings in that spit here, and the Russians basically bulldozed sand there to build a road over it. They used it for military purpose. There was a training facility on there too. I think one of those was hit by a missile from the Ukrainians, by a HIMARS, I think. So Ukrainians struck it in the past. No, it wasn't a HIMARS, it's out of range, but something hit it there and killing training Russian soldiers. And now we see that the storm has actually opened it. We're talking about this island here in the south, which has been hit in this attack. No, actually it might be in HIMARS range. Yeah, I think it was a HIMARS after all. Let me quickly check. Yeah, it's in HIMARS range. So HIMARS, and this here, the Russians have used it as a road, but supposedly now at 3 positions the spit has been opened again, and the storm also has had some results in the harbor defenses of Sevastopol. We see it here that this is prior to the storm and this is afterwards. We heard about waves of up to 10 meters and we see the results here. That's already it from me for now. If you found this interesting and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment. What do you think about the current developments? And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching and I'll be back.